Hey everyone, I'm here today with Abby Glassenberg, the president and co-founder of Craft Industry Alliance, and just very excited to visit with her today about what's going on at Craft Industry Alliance and just all the great things that they do in the industry. Hi, this is Clint O'Rear. Thanks for joining the Creative Retail Talks podcast today, where we will be discussing the latest in life, business, and retail. So Abby, welcome and great to have you.
Thank you so much, Clint. It's great to be here.
So I know you've done a lot of things in the craft industry prior to co-founding Craft Industry Alliance. So let's talk about that part of your journey first. Tell me kind of about, what those years were, what you did prior to Craft Industry Alliance.
Sure. So I am actually formally trained as a teacher. So I had a history degree undergrad, and I did teach for America in the Mississippi Delta for 2 years, and then came up to the Boston area to go to Harvard to get my master's degree in education and stayed. So I worked at a nonprofit that did education in the Boston public schools for 2 years, and then was a sixth grade social studies teacher in Newton, Massachusetts for 2 years. And then I had children. And so I knew I wanted to stay home, but I needed something else to do with a baby at home. And I discovered blogs in the New York Times. There was an article about blogs, which were brand new. This was back in 2004. And I thought, well, maybe there's a blog for crafting, because I've always been artistic. I've always loved to make things. I've always been a crafter my whole life. And I figured, while my daughter's napping, I'd love to, make things, and maybe I can do something with a blog. So sure enough, there were a few craft blogs at that time. I started following them, interacting, getting to know people all over the world. And then in May of 2005, I thought I can start my own blog and do this myself. So I thought, well, what will I call it? And I decided to call it While She Naps, because it was all the things I was making while my daughter napped. I literally there was no such thing even as a mommy blog back then. And I had no idea I would start a business. It was just something for fun. And so I started sewing stuffed animals and dolls. I would take my daughter to the library during story time and then check out these books from the 1960s and 70s and early 80s about how to sew stuffed animals and dolls. And I would just sew all the patterns. And pretty soon I started developing my own patterns. And then Etsy launched in July of 2005. So I thought, well, this is great, because I don't know how to code, but I would love to sell things. So I started an Etsy shop really early. I still have my Etsy shop. Etsy was still in beta back then, and everything was free. There was no fees. So I got online. It became a business, I guess, really quickly. So I started making stuffed animals and dolls and selling them there. And within a few years, I had kind of evolved into making soft sculpture, and I was making soft sculpture birds. And through making them and posting them online, I got a book deal with Interweave to create a book of soft sculpture bird patterns called The Artful Bird. So that was my first book. And then that came out in 2011. And I wrote a second book called Stuffed Animals from Concept to Construction, which is all about how to design your own stuffed animal patterns. Cool. That came out in 2013. And then I shifted really from creating and selling finished goods to creating and selling patterns. And so that was when I really started having a business, because selling instructions can scale in a way that selling handmade goods is really difficult to do. Not impossible, but hard. So that's when I really started having a business. And through writing those books, I was introduced to kind of the business side of craft, which was something that, I don't know, is sort of invisible to the consumer. I certainly didn't know anything about it. But here I was signing book contracts and doing publicity. And I found out about the trade shows and went to Quilt Market and kind of realized, oh my gosh, there's a whole other side of, fabric manufacturers and all these things. And so I started really getting interested in that. And, my mom was a newspaper reporter when I was growing up, and my dad's a lawyer. So I kind of came by it rightfully, I guess. But I started writing more business related articles, because I felt like there wasn't a lot of that going on. So my blog shifted from being about sewing patterns to being about business. I started a podcast. So like you, I have a podcast as well. And I started that in 2013.
I want to say you're like so much more experienced than me. I've got a pro on the podcast today. I'm still learning on this.
Podcasting is a lot of fun. So I started a podcast because I had written an article about Etsy. Etsy had changed their definition of handmade. And somebody from Etsy reached out to me and said, I'd love to talk to you further about this. And I said, well, I don't really want to do that unless I can record it and share the recording with my audience. So I thought, well, they'll never agree to that, but they did. So suddenly I had a podcast. And after that recording came out, it got 8,000 downloads in the first day, and busted through my bandwidth, crashed my site. And I was like, okay, I need to, have a podcast. So I started that, and also a newsletter that rounded up all the craft industry news of the week every week. And I sent that out, and I had a pretty large following on the newsletter as well. And so through all of those relationships that I met doing those things, I met a co-founder, Kristen Link, who had her own sewing blog that was extremely popular at the time. And we came together and decided, you know what we should do? We should form a trade association for the craft industry, a new kind of trade association, not one that would be focused on a trade show per se, but would provide all the good things you get at the trade show, but all year round and online. And so we spent 10 months building it and launched it as Craft Industry Alliance in October of 2015.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I love that, how just the whole journey has kind of built to where you are today. And I can still see some of the fingerprints of those past years and what you're doing today. And that's really cool how it's just all woven together so nicely. Now, quick question on the dolls. And I know you've got some back there behind you for those that are looking at it on video. If you're on audio, you can't see it, but you can picture it. So some awesome dolls behind you. So you're still doing that, correct? You're still doing work with dolls?
Yes, I still, in fact, right now I'm designing kind of a Raggedy Ann base doll. So not quite Raggedy Ann, but something similar. But yes, my shop is still open on Etsy, and I still have my own website where I sell patterns. And I also sell supplies for making stuffed animals and dolls, like squeakers and rattles and hemostats and things that are specialty supplies, safety eyes, safety noses, things like that, that you need to make dolls that they don't necessarily sell in the, conventional craft store. So yes, I still have my craft-based business. I don't have a ton of time to work on it, but I work on it on the weekends.
So it sounds like you and Kristen kind of saw a need, and just from your own personal experience thought we need something out there for people like us. And that sounds like that's kind of where Craft Industry Alliance was birthed. Is that right?
Yeah, we spent the 10 months that we spent planning to launch, we spoke to a lot of different stakeholders. We spoke to people outside of the crafts industry who were just members of trade associations for their own industry, like construction and lingerie and various things, to ask them, like, why are you a member of your trade association? What do you get from it? What's the most valuable part of it? And we also spoke to a lot of different people within the crafts industry too. And through those conversations, we decided that the association should be, even though both of us came from a sewing background and for Kristen, a quilting background, that it really should cover all crafts, that we all have more in common than not in common. So we all need insurance, we all need to sign contracts, we all need to do marketing, and we're all really creating products for people to do in their leisure time, to express themselves, to be creative, to build community. Although, each of these various niches, from, crochet to cross stitch to polymer clay, might have, specifics that are differentiators, really, as a business owner, we have a lot more in common and can learn a lot from one another. And so we decided to create a association that would encompass everyone.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I came across you when we first connected, I guess about a year and a half ago or so, through your newsletter, and amazing information that you share from that. And so great job on that. So I want to dive in and talk all things Craft Industry Alliance for a few minutes, because you guys have such a great organization, and I want everyone that doesn't know about it to know about it. So tell me a little bit about kind of the evolution. You're about 6 years in. What have some of the biggest challenges been? What's been the most fun? What are you the most proud of?
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it's been almost 6 years. It's so crazy. It'll be 6 years in October. Yeah. So, I will say it was successful right away. Like right at launch, we had a lot of members, which was really encouraging to see and made me really happy. And we now are at 1,760, which is great. And I absolutely love interacting with our members every day. You know, I learn from them every day. We have incredibly inspiring people who are members of our organization, and they do fantastic things. They teach and design, and we have big companies who are parts of our organization, as well as small, you know, Etsy shop owners who work from home. So getting everybody together to mingle, get to know each other and collaborate with one another is just fantastic. For me, you know, one of the sort of highlights of my month every month is our craft business roundtable, which we host on the first Tuesday of each month. And it's a meeting online on Zoom that brings together our members from all over the place. And we spend the first portion talking about what's going on in the industry. And then the last portion, people can talk about what's happening in their businesses, ask questions, seek support, celebrate successes. And it's just really a great way to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on and to feel motivated. You know, it can be a little bit lonely having a business, and sometimes people in your local area, you know, they may not get it. Like what is a, you know, crochet pattern business or a knitting pattern business or something like that? What's an indie dyer? You know, they just may not be a great support system right near you, but to be online with people who really get it and are in there with you is just so inspiring and just motivating. So I love that aspect of it. I think that would maybe be my, you know, my favorite part of it. So I'll just back up a little bit to say, like, what is it that we do now? One of the things that we provide is community, which is what I just mentioned with our craft business roundtable. We also have a private Facebook group where people can ask questions. So community is really important to us. And we have some new initiatives this year that we launched in that area. Second thing that we provide is news. And you mentioned earlier our newsletter. We really felt that there was not a serious B2B news outlet for the crafts industry, and there should be. And in talking to people in other industries, you know, they all have a magazine or online news outlet that really covers mergers, acquisitions, new hires, trends, what is happening in the industry. And I don't know why craft didn't really have that, but it certainly needed it. And so I am very jazzed about news. I love news. I write articles for our site, but we also have a pool of over 200 freelancers who write for us. And, you know, we pay all of our writers so that we can get qualified reporters and just the best voices in the industry. We've been committed from the first day to pay everybody that works with us, because it's a problem I'm sure you've experienced in the crafts industry, where a lot of people are paid in glue or they're paid in fabric yardage. And that's just not the way that we wanted to operate. We pay people in money. That was important from the beginning.
The grocery store doesn't take bottles of glue, do they?
They don't. Yeah. So that's something that we really are working to change, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
So we pay everybody who works with us, and we cover news. And honestly, if you have a business in this industry, what is happening is extremely important to you, the news coverage, and it needs to be done well. It needs to be fast. It needs to be accurate. So that is a huge portion of what we do. And then the third piece that we provide is ongoing education. I mentioned that I used to be a 6th grade teacher, and Kristen actually was an 8th grade social studies teacher.
Okay.
So both of us are really committed to education, and we provide ongoing professional education through webinars. So every month we have a webinar. This month's webinar was about overcoming creative obstacles like feelings of imposter syndrome or procrastination, how to rewrite those mental scripts so that you can tackle the projects that are in front of you and feel like you are the best person for the job. So that was the one that we did this month. Most recently, we've had a panel discussion about starting a membership site, which is a new kind of business model that a lot of people are interested in pursuing. So we had 3 very experienced membership site owners in the craft space come on together and talk about all the nuts and bolts, all the advantages of doing this, all the pitfalls, et cetera. And it was incredibly informative. But we've had webinars on all sorts of things. During the pandemic, it was about pivoting to teaching on Zoom, about getting an SBA loan. I mean, really, we've done almost everything. So ongoing professional education is really important to me. And that's the third piece of what we do. So all of that kind of comes together, and you get really the best of what would be offered at a trade show, but online, accessible to everyone and all year.
Yeah. So I'm just going to stop real quick and tell everyone listening, we're going to put a link to your website in our show notes. And
Thank you.
as I've looked at the website over the last couple of years, the content just blows me away. And in particular, all of the amazing webinars that you just mentioned, like when people go click on the link, check out all the webinars, it is literally just amazing, all of the webinar content that is there. So y'all have done a great job on that. And I really encourage everyone to go check that out because there is some great info there for sure.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit about staff, and then come back to kind of the mix of members a little bit. But while we're talking about the website and the newsletter, I know that does take an amazing team. So tell us a little bit about your team, kind of who they are, what they do. And I know they're very special. So kind of how that team is special. Tell us about that.
Oh, thank you. So, so I'm the only full-time employee. It's just me. We're a small team, we're remote, and we've never met each other in person. So I should say that Kristen left the business in May of 2019. We're still good friends, but she had some things that she was working through. So I ended up buying out her 50% share of the business so that I'm the full owner now. And then we have Kate and Kenny, who is our operations manager, and she an outreach coordinator. She's fantastic. She's in Colorado, and she manages all sorts of things for us. For example, she manages our discount program. So one of the member benefits you get when you become a member of Craft Industry Alliance is discounts on pro tools you will need to run your business. Everything from printing to shipping to marketing tools to online learning, all sorts of things. So Kate manages that program, making sure all the discounts are always up to date, reaching out to new discount partners. Like we just this week added NerdPress, which is a company that does WordPress maintenance. So they handle all the plugin updates and all the things that break on your website. They're fantastic. You just sign on for a year and they're there at the ready. We have a discount with them that if you sign up and use it, it actually covers your whole Craft Industry Alliance membership fee. So that just with that one discount. So Kate manages that. Plus she does a lot. She's a graphic designer and a coder. So she does a lot of the back end part of our website and creating graphics and things like that. So she's fantastic. We also have Meg Bateman. So Meg manages our Instagram. That's all she does. But Instagram's an incredibly important marketing tool, especially in the craft space, because it's so visual. And so we know that our community is there, and we know that we need to have up-to-date relevant content, be interacting with our members on Instagram. And so that is what Meg does. She just manages our Instagram. So she's awesome that way. And then we also have 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗔𝗪𝗦, who's our graphic designer. So she's been with us from before launch, and she created all of our graphics. Our logo is actually drawn by Nicole Stevenson, but 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗔𝗪𝗦 took all of Nicole's hand-drawn graphics and created all of our graphic design for our website. And so she continues to do that. We really thought it was important to have a graphic designer on board. And then we just recently hired 𝗧𝗓𝗓 Scruggs. So 𝗧𝗓𝗓 is a staff writer, and she is an incredible journalist, like really, really good. I mean, I don't have any journalism background. 𝗧𝗓𝗓's a great writer, and she really understands the industry as well. She's a knitter herself. So she's just come on board. That's a new hire for us. And we are super excited to welcome her and to have somebody who's out there covering news for us on a more regular basis, in addition to our freelance pools. So that's been great. And then we are in the midst of hiring a community manager. We had Ashley Brookshaw as our community manager for this past year. She's now doing diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting for our community with us, which we are so grateful for, because that's where her business has kind of gone. And so I'm in the midst of interviewing and hiring a community manager who really will manage our Facebook group. Because we have over 1,000 people in our Facebook group, we really need a professional manager just to help with building community there and moderating conversations, et cetera. And it is a members only group, so vetting new members, et cetera. So I should have that hire next week, but so that's our team. Again, they're all the other people on our team work just a few hours a week, and I'm the only full-time person here.
Well, you do an amazing job yourself, and then also assembling that team of part-time help that does amazing things, and just very impressive. I know you also have a board of advisors. Tell us a little bit about how has the board of advisors helped guide the association?
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for our board. We have incredible board members. This is the first year we have our board meeting coming up next week, and they're going to finish out their first year term. So we started creating a board of advisors last summer, and there are 5 people on this board. It's a paid position, and we meet quarterly. Plus, they help me in between quite a bit. But they're from all areas of the crafts industry. As I mentioned, I come from a sewing background, and so I've learned a lot about other areas of the industry, but there's also just a lot of knowledge, networking that I can't necessarily do on my own. Plus, they come from really diverse backgrounds that help inform what we do. And they're like experts in various areas of the industry. So when we come together, I present all different sorts of things that we're thinking about, results of things that we've done, that they help me analyze and just kind of plot out what needs to happen in the future. Everything from hiring to programming to advertising, just all sorts of things. And it's like having, I don't know, like just a fantastic team behind me working together to make this organization the best that it can possibly be. And I'm so, so grateful for them.
Yeah. That's great. So let's talk about members. I know you have a very broad mix of members, from makers to suppliers to designers to writers, maybe even others that I'm not thinking of right now. So just kind of broadly, you probably don't have the exact statistics, but just kind of broadly, what's the breakdown in the membership between the different roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of our members are very small businesses. I think the majority of people who have businesses in the craft industry have very small businesses. They are, either one person, like a micro business, or they have, 3 or 4 people. They might own a brick and mortar store or have a studio space where they're having people come in and help. Between those two, that's a large majority of our members. We do have, quite a few businesses. We have corporate members and enterprise level members as well. And so we have quite a few businesses that are, 20 employees, and they're a manufacturer of fabric or a manufacturer of yarn or paint or that sort of thing. And then we also have very large businesses in the industry as well. Some of the bigger names that you would certainly recognize, even, consumers would absolutely recognize, that you would see in a big box store or certainly in your local retailer, and their members as well. And, oftentimes what we find is that the marketing team from those bigger corporations are the ones that really interact with us the most. So they will be in our Facebook group, sort of seeing what's bubbling up, understanding what's going on, connecting with influencers for campaigns, that sort of thing. And then also they really benefit from our webinars because we do provide professional education. So when they want to know what's new at Pinterest, and we have a webinar with, Kate All from Simple Pin Media, well, she's like the Pinterest expert. So you're able to, as a member of the marketing team, learn from the best and get that one-on-one. Plus you can, ask questions, et cetera. So we do have, it's a smaller, but we do have those larger businesses, and we're very happy to welcome them as well. But yes, I would say the majority are very, very tiny. And, listen, I'm a very tiny sewing business myself. So I have a sweet spot for people who are, really good at whatever artistic, pursuit they're doing, but didn't go to business school. I didn't go to business school, didn't go to law school. I didn't go to law school, but really need to understand these, how to, sign a lease. Like, what are you looking at here? And how to manage inventory. I mean, these are really important and big questions, and it's easy to make a mistake. Why not learn from other people instead of being alone in this? And so I do love all of our littler businesses as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about the industry for a second. So we've both been around the industry for a long time, different roles, but been part of the creative industry for many years, both of us. So as you look at the future of the creative industry, what are you most excited about as you look at kind of where this industry is going, where it can go? What excites you about that?
Well, I'm definitely seeing a lot going on TikTok. I don't know if you are on TikTok, but I love TikTok. Like I could potentially have a problem with being on TikTok for too long, but I think TikTok's brilliant. And I spend a lot of time on there, and I will say, like, I see a lot of crafting going on TikTok, and I see a
Yeah.
lot of people who are really young, who are between, let's say, 15 and 20, learning to crochet because of somebody they saw on TikTok, learning to sew vintage sewing patterns because of being inspired by somebody on TikTok. So I would say, or like doing paint pouring, there's so many crafts, resin, et cetera, that I really see on TikTok. So I would say if you're going to, come out of the gate now and want to build a following, that's a great spot to go if you are somebody who enjoys making video and building an audience in that way. I'm not personally a performer, so I'm more of a consumer of TikTok, but I definitely think it's hugely inspiring and valuable, and has a lot of potential for building a consumer base for the crafts industry. So that's one area that I would say I'm really excited about. And I love all of the retailers that are really focusing on creating experiences in their stores. I think that we've come to a moment where you're not going to win on inventory. Like, there's just no way you are, because there's these e-commerce sites like Amazon or fabric.com, which is part of Amazon, where they have every fabric in every line, for example, or whatever you're looking at, every color of everything. And you're never going to be able to stock all of that. So the days when you could win on that premise are over. And so what can you offer that they can't? And that's expertise and experience and community. I mean, I think craft is a fantastic opportunity to build community. Think back to those art classes you took in high school where everybody be sitting around making things. And that's when you have the best conversations, because everyone's sort of focused on what they're making and not necessarily looking at everybody else, but just talking and bonding. And I love that. I just love the experiential piece. And so I've talked to quite a few brick and mortar shop owners that are doing really well by like creating kits and having people come in together and everybody's making together. And then they have all the, the supplies for that project right there on hand. So instead of having everything, having that curated amount of things that are really special and just creating community with people, I think, and sharing your expertise or the expertise of other teachers, I think is really an exciting piece for the future, and is how our brick and mortars are going to survive. I love local brick and mortars, and I think that that's the way to do it.
Yeah, totally agree. It's, you don't get community and experience on .com, do you? So I think they will both have their places, but couldn't agree more on the future of brick and mortar. And it's exciting to think about too, because interestingly, it does take us back to really where a lot of arts and crafts brick and mortar started, which was community and experience. So I do think that's very exciting. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges for the industry in the future?
That is a good question.
The $1 million question, right?
What are some of the biggest challenges? I mean, I do think it's important to have a robust e-commerce site, and I think it's difficult to do. It's difficult to sync up your inventory with what you have in person, but it is really an important arm of what's happening. I think people need to really learn or really hire somebody who understands Shopify, can set up the e-commerce for you, make the user experience really good, interact with your consumers directly. I think the days of being intermediated are also over. So now it's easier than ever to interact with your consumers online directly. Even if you're a wholesaler, building that brand awareness and recognition and really relationships. I mean, that's what people want. So I think that that's important. And it's really important to have that robust online presence, e-commerce presence. And it's a challenge. I know I run a website. I mean, our whole business is based on a website. So I get how hard it is. And it is hard. I don't have any, technical background, coding background. But I think you just need to have the attitude of, it's a sandbox, let's get it in play, instead of feeling resistant or wishing things were the way they used to be. Being excited about each new development and wanting to just get your hands dirty and realizing you can tackle this. No one's too old to tackle something new. That's what, online, ongoing learning and having that growth mindset's all about. So yeah, I would say those two things are challenging, and I do understand why, but there's help out there.
Yeah.
And you can learn yourself too. Don't feel like, oh gosh, I have to load this onto someone who's 22. No, like
Yeah.
you can learn this at any age.
Yeah. Great points. Great points. So as we wrap up, let's shift back to Craft Industry Alliance. So what does the future of Craft Industry Alliance look like, and how would you like to see it grow and evolve?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about that all the time. I mean, for me, one of the things that we've really worked on this year is adding more community building. I started doing these member spotlight interviews on Instagram Live every Wednesday. And it's funny because when I started them in September, I would always, we drop in on someone's studio, ask them what they're working on, learn about their business. And then I always, say, thank you so much for being a member of Craft Industry Alliance. And the first thing they would always talk about was the Craft Business Roundtable, this online event that we have every month. And it struck me how important community really is to our members.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to add more community offerings. So one thing we did this year was add regional Zoom meetings so that our members can get to know other people in their local area. So we divided the whole US and then all the rest of the world into regions. And we had a member from that region host the meeting. They were extremely popular. People loved them. Just to know, like, what craft fairs are you going to in this area? Where are you sourcing supplies in this area? What is it like here? And just making new friends too. So that was really successful. We're going to continue doing those. We have another one coming up in mid-September. And then another community initiative we launched this year was mastermind groups. So these are small groups of 4 to 6 business owners. We pair them up into these groups based on the years of experience that they have, the type of business that they have, and the topic they want to focus on. And like if they want to focus on leadership or on marketing or on publishing. And they get together every other week on Zoom for 3 months and set goals, check in, how are they doing on those goals, brainstorm with each other. And we really found that small group of peers is so powerful. So that was a program we launched in January. It ran to the end of March, and we're going to start it up again at the end of August and run through Thanksgiving. But that was a really fantastic new addition. So we're always looking for those community building pieces because connecting is really what I think is the most powerful piece of what we do.
Yeah.
So that's definitely in our future. Of course, we always want to grow our membership. Really, we grow our membership by finding new articles that are relevant to different niches in our industry. So we, for example, covered when the 𝗧𝗫𝗏𝗪𝗏 show shut down, which was really sad. We covered that for our site, and lots of people who are in the jewelry making space learned about us for the first time. And so we always want to know, what is happening that's relevant to people in this industry. How can we cover that news in a way that is compelling, informative, timely? Because when someone shares that article on Facebook, that's how new people come to the site, maybe have never heard of it before, sign up for our newsletter, which goes out every Wednesday, and then over time realize that they would like to become a member of this community. So that's something that I'm always have on my radar is, and if anyone listening ever has a story tip for us, we are all ears.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Abby, you guys are just rocking it. And I'm blown away with everything you're doing to create community and connection and sharing content. So thank you for everything you guys do at Craft Industry Alliance. And I hope that some of the people listening learn some things new about what you're doing. And like I said, we'll put your website in the show notes, and people can click on that and learn more and see all the amazing things that you guys are doing. So it's been so fun to visit with you today. So thanks for being with us on Creative Retail Talks. And I wish you and the team just all the best as you continue to push Craft Industry Alliance ahead.
Thank you so much, Clinton. We are very happy that you're a member as well.
I'm honored to be a member and love seeing those emails every week for sure. So
thank you. Thank you for
thanks
having
again.
me.
You bet. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed our conversation on the Creative Retail Talks podcast today. Be sure to visit our show notes page for more information on today's show. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, reach out to me at clint@creativeretailtalks.com. Creative Retail Talks is all one word. That email address will also be in the show notes. Hope you have a great day.